nationwide strike. INEC officially declares winner of Bayelsa governorship election. Tinubu's aide reacts as Oyedire wins Bayelsa governorship election. Tinubu reacts as Uzodinma Diri Ododo win Gober elections. Reps demand update on missing 3 billion naira from ITF within 48 hours. And President Tinubu directs withdrawal of personnel from VVIPs. Details now. The news begins with the Nigerian Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria earlier today directing its members to commence mobilization for a nationwide strike over the assault on NLC President Joe Ajaro. VOP News gathered that the organized labor directed its affiliates to implement the resolutions of the National Executive Council. Addressing journalists today, November 13, President of the TUC, Festus Osifo, said the strike would remain until government at all levels wakes up to their responsibility. Recall that the National Industrial Court of Nigeria last Friday issued an order of interim injunction stopping members of organized labor and their affiliates from proceeding with the nationwide strike scheduled to commence on November 14. The president of the court, Justice Benedict Kanyip, issued the order on Friday while ruling on an ex parte application. The application was brought before the court by the Attorney General of the Federation on behalf of the federal government and argued by Tijani Ghazali, a senior advocate of Nigeria, Acting Director, Civil Appeals, Federal Ministry of Justice. Justice Kanyip said the order shall subsist until the determination of a motion on notice for interlocutory injunctions equally filed by the AGF. Meanwhile, the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC has officially renounced the incumbent Governor of Bayelsa State and governorship candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Oyedire, as the winner of the governorship election held last Saturday. The AP News gathered that the returning officer, Professor Farouk Kuta, who is also the Vice Chancellor of the Federal University of Technology, MENA, announced Diri winner of the poll at the collation center of the election today. Diri polled 175,196 to defeat his closest rival, Timmy Silva, of the All Progressives Congress, who garnered 110,108 votes, while the Labour Party polled 905 votes. Meanwhile, the presidential aide, Bayo Nanuga, has reacted to the emergence of Oyedire as a winner of the Bayelsa governorship election. VOP News gathered that Diri, the People's Democratic Party candidate in the Bayelsa governorship election, won his re-election after the result of the last local government, Southern Ijo, was announced. Diri won 6 local government areas to win re-election, while his closest rival, Timmy Silva, of the All Progressives Congress, won 2 local government areas. However, after the result of the Southern Ijo was declared, the margin between Diri and his closest challenger, Timmy Silva, climbed to 65,088. Diri polled a total of 175,196 votes to defeat his main challenger, Silva, who polled 110,108 votes. Reacting to this development in a post via his X handle earlier today, Onanuga congratulated Diri on his re-election as the Bayelsa governor. He wrote, and I read, "Congrats to Governor Oyedire of the PDP for winning re-election in Bayelsa." Now, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has congratulated Governor Hope Uzodinma of Imo State and his Bayelsa State counterpart, Oyedire, on their victories in the November 11 governorship elections. In a statement on Monday issued by his spokesperson, Ajero Ngolali, President Tinubu also felicitated with the governor-elect of Kogi State, Usman Ododo. The president commended the electorates in Imo, Kogi, and Bayelsa for their participation in the electoral process, affirming the resilience of democratic institutions and the power of the people in shaping the nation's political landscape. Also, President Tinubu said the outcome of the election reflects the wishes of the people, emphasizing that democracy thrives when voters reward competence, transparency, and good governance. He also commended the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) for working assiduously to create a level playing field for all contestants and the nation's security agencies for maintaining law and order during the highly anticipated elections. The president affirmed the need for a sustained commitment to all efforts aimed at further sanitizing the electoral system and enhancing the credibility of future elections. With the election processes concluded, President Tinubu anticipates a renewed sense of hope for the people of Kogi, Imo, and Bayelsa states, as well as consolidation on progress that will position the states as hubs of peace, commerce, entrepreneurship, and prosperity in Nigeria. In the spirit of fostering a harmonious, inclusive political landscape in the aforementioned states, President Tinubu asked the victors to prioritize the common good of the people over partisan interest. Elsewhere, the House of Representatives has set a 48-hour deadline for the Industrial Training Fund to account for the 3 billion naira linked to the agency during its ongoing examination of the medium-term expenditure framework and the fiscal strategy paper. The House of Representatives issued a strict 48-hour deadline today for the Industrial Training Fund to account for the whereabouts of 3 billion naira linked to the agency, as highlighted in the Auditor General for the Federation's 2022 report. The chairman of the Committee on Finance, who presided over an interactive session with key figures from federal government agencies at the National Assembly complex, emphasized the urgency of the situation. Additionally, the House directed the Nigerian Communications Commission to clarify how it utilized the 291 billion naira allocated for broadband development throughout the country in 2022, especially given the reported substandard services. Meanwhile, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has directed the withdrawal of police personnel serving as security details for very important personalities, VIPs. The Minister of State for Police Affairs, Hajia Iman Sulaiman Ibrahim, made this known today at a two-day retreat for Directorate Qadar in the ministry held in Abuja. She said the mandate of the ministry includes amending the Nigerian Police Act, developing and implementing a harmonized police reform report, and developing a community policing strategy for the Nigerian police force. Sulaiman Ibrahim said her ministry will soon carry out the presidential directives, saying they are not mere tasks, but transformative initiatives that can enhance internal security in the country. Now, to actually talk about a couple of very interesting topics right here on the World News at 6, I actually have joining me via the telephone Barrister Eze Eluche. Barrister Eze Eluche is a political and social affairs commentator, and of course, as the name implies, he is a legal practitioner, and of course, he has a way of putting things in proper context based on his perspective when we do try to analyze these issues. Barrister Eze Eluche, good evening and welcome to the World News at 6 right here on VOP 90.3 FM.
Thank you very much for having me in your studios virtually.
All right, thank you, Barrister Eze. So here is something that is very important that I want you to actually listen to, and I want to get your purview. Lukman, that is Salihu Mo Lukman, who is an APC chieftain, has alleged significant expenditures by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the APC governors, about 150 billion naira and 14 billion naira respectively, to secure victories in the 2023 elections. And of course, Lukman is claiming that Tinubu spent over 50 billion naira for the presidential primary and at least 100 billion naira for the main election. Now, for APC governors, he suggests some spent over 3 billion naira for primary tickets and at least 10 billion naira for the main elections, including expenses like 100 million and 50 million naira for expression of interest in nomination forms. He said the reason why he's actually coming out to express his concerns is because of the escalating costs. And Lukman noted the erosion of APC's democratic credentials, emphasizing the surge in nomination form cost over the years. He's projecting 250 million naira for the 2027 presidential election and 125 million naira for governorship, highlighting the contrast to 2015 when forms were considerably cheaper. Now, apparently, this particular APC chieftain is coming out to say this because possibly he has looked at the whole situation or scenario and it doesn't help him or benefit him in any way. Now, let's look at Hope Uzodinma of Imo State. While he was thanking the people of the state for helping him and supporting him, he said, and I quote, that President Bola Tinubu guided him on how to go about his re-election campaign and go about securing his win. And so he attributed his win in Imo State to the guidance of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And Barrister Eze Eluche, I'm sure you saw what transpired in Imo State and how the elections went. What would you say concerning what I have just read out to you?
Let me respond first to the issue of the Imo State governor who said he was guided by Mr. Bola Tinubu. Now, I very much agree with Mr. Hope Uzodinma that it was Bola Tinubu's ideas that guided him. Because if you remember, Bola Tinubu said, with elections or politics generally, you have to grab it, snatch it, and run with it. Grab it, snatch it, and run with it. That was exactly what Mr. Hope Uzodinma did in Imo State. They grabbed, they snatched, and they ran away with it. So and that was what the way, if that is the way he says Bola Tinubu guided him, no problems. Only it was a very big shock for the people of Imo State, because at the beginning of this election process, when the police had announced that they were sending a DIG, Frank and back, 27 assistant commissioners of police to Imo State, and 25,000 policemen, the people of Imo State felt, okay, at least there'll be a lot of security, and the elections will be smooth and fair. But to our shock, to our astonishment, these 25,000 men, policemen who were deployed to the state.
Barrister Eze, are you using an earpiece? Because it fluctuates, like you fade out and fade in. You sounded clear.
Is it okay now?
Yes, it's okay now. Please go ahead.
Good. The 25,000 policemen that were deployed by the IG now compounded the issues because they virtually colluded with INEC officials to ensure the most rigged election ever in the annals of Imo State history. So indeed, Mr. Hope Uzodinma is right. He did learn from Mr. Tinubu, but it's against the basic tenets of democracy. Because what transpired in Imo State during the last elections was that there were several areas where ballot boxes were snatched, not by thugs, but by people in police uniform, policemen, in police Hilux vehicles. And it happened in Emekuku, it happened in Omonoha, it happened in Orsu local government. It was just rampant. So when we have 25,000 policemen in such a small state like Imo, where it was basically about 6 or 7 policemen per square kilometer, and this level of horrendous rigging took place, it was only clear that it was the police and the security personnel had colluded with the Hope Uzodinma in keeping with the ideas which he gained, like he said, from Mr. Bola Tinubu. And in regard to the earlier question you asked about the cost of elections, which the APC chieftain said,
yes,
I wonder why the man is stopping at 250 million by 2027. I envisage that by that time we will not be having less than $1 billion or $2 billion if you want to contest for presidency, because then it will have been totally monetized. It will have been, the whole idea is to try to strangulate the people away from the political system. So I envisage a fee by the political parties of up to $1 billion or $2 billion if you want to contest for the presidency, and then for governorship $1 billion. So that by then it's now done on Nigerians that what we are practicing has absolutely nothing to do with democracy, but clearly a cash and carry system. You drop money, you bribe the officials, you bribe the judiciary, then you take your office. Simple.
Barrister Eze, so here is something quite interesting. When the Supreme Court affirmed President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the president, while he was addressing his supporters, said that the opposition ought to congratulate him, that this is a fair way due to all that he went through before the final declaration by the Supreme Court, whereby he did not stop or impede his opposition from trying hard to prove themselves that they actually won the February 25 elections. And so he said that there should be no divisive politics, rather that they should congratulate him on his win and work along with him, to have a positive method of governance. Now, there is almost a replica, let me not use almost, possibly worse, of what transpired during the presidential elections. We saw individuals who were caught trying to snatch ballot boxes. Some individuals actually succeeded in snatching ballot boxes. Also, some wore security, they wore the uniform of a police officer, went there to take ballot boxes. There is a particular inspector called Kilamber in Imo State who is working under certain political party leadership orders. There is also a particular party agent wearing the APC card, that is party agent card, with about 11 point something million naira to induce individuals coming out to exercise their franchise, giving them 3,000 naira each, and was caught. These are all the anomalies that we're seeing. Some individuals came to a polling unit, carted away some of the ballot boxes, and the materials, ballot thumb printing materials, went away, and the INEC officials were looking, they couldn't do anything. In Braz local government in Bayelsa, one of the INEC officials was kidnapped with the election materials. In some polling units, there was already a filled ballot paper. Nathan Achonu came out to say that this election was a rape on our democracy. One of the SDP governorship candidates said he is actually appalled at the conduct of the elections with a huge amount of money given to INEC. The question is, are we saying now we're going to see massive, corrupt, rigged impunity and a primitive era in the conduct of our elections from now on? Secondly, are we going to say that this is going to be the order of the day in a brazen manner? And I need your objective response to that.
Yes, thank you very much. Let me start with the issue of Mr. Tinubu expecting his opponents in the presidential elections to congratulate him. It is uncalled for. It is impossible. When you feel robbed, when your house has been overwhelmed by armed robbers, do you congratulate those robbers for robbing you? No, you don't do that, because the issues are very, very clear. On conditional issues, is Mr. Tinubu the president, despite what thoughts have affirmed? No. Did he submit a forged document to INEC? If the answer is yes, has he does he have identity issues? Has he forged documents? No, these are the issues. And those are the reasons why his opponent cannot, in good spirit, congratulate him. But if indeed he had won the elections, certainly nobody would have begrudged him his victory. With regards to the issue of violence and the level of robbery and banditry going on in the election, it will only increase. The reason being that if you do not punish those who do wrong, if you do not punish those who digress, it will only get worse. Because as long as they feel they can get away with the scams or with crime, people will continue to steal. During the last elections, the one of February and March, INEC claimed that 250 Electoral Act violators were arrested. Till date, not a single person has been prosecuted. So why would people not be encouraged to even steal more? And like you saw in these last elections for governorship, in Imo, Bayelsa, and Kogi, the criminality was, in fact, it went higher. And there was much more brazen stealing. There was even no need, they weren't even afraid to allow themselves to be recorded. The videos of policemen snatching ballot boxes in Enugu is out there on the net. Same thing with Umunoha. The issue of ballot boxes, ballot papers already, result sheets already filled, are all over there on the internet in Kogi and Bayelsa State. So the criminality will continue to increase. And it is even worse now because the security agencies are now the ones who are supporting this criminality. So if the police is involved in criminal acts during elections, who will arrest who? That is why these things will continue to increase. We even see the dastardly use of state security apparatus, state security personnel to intimidate opponents on election day. We saw how the EFCC operatives stormed Dino Malay's polling unit. Have you ever seen EFCC storm a polling unit in that kind of manner? And this similar in Imo State, where the governor came to cast his vote, there was an armada of security personnel. Meanwhile, the IG has said there should be no police escorts for politicians on the day of election. So we can only expect that this criminal act will increase and increase until Nigeria decides to put a stop to all this nonsense, because it cannot continue.
Professor
in fact, there's going to be a stage.
You're saying okay, go ahead.
There's going to be a stage. There's going to be a stage where if we continue to use the word democracy for this system of government we have, it will be a grammatical blunder to refer to what we have in Nigeria as a democracy, because it has nothing to do with the will of the people, the votes of the people, or the conscience of the people. It's just an imposition. Thank
All
you.
right. Barrister Eze, you said something that the people need to do more beyond talking. And if the people don't decide to do the needful, then we'll continue to experience this. But can you help me put in context when the people have been impoverished to a level where they have no choice? They are easily induced by whatever corrupt mannerism that is being introduced by those who are supposed to lead them. For example, I'll go back to the president asking that the opposition ought to congratulate him and, of course, not to be part of divisive politics. If you look at the foundation of political practices in this part of the world, it has always been divisive. Our forefathers, it almost seems like our forefathers planned a system whereby politics in this part of the world will have to do with who has it all, the best connections, impoverish the people, use the impoverishment against them, use it to infuse your own desires in them, make them feel important when you need them, and possibly discard them when you have to. Then you ask your opponents, especially those whom you consider to be your strong contenders, Atiku Abubakar of the People's Democratic Party and Peter Obi of the Labour Party, you ask them, they're supposed to congratulate you because of all that transpired before the Supreme Court gave its ruling. You also talked about the fact that knowing that you are possibly one of the strong political strategists because you understand how politics in this terrain works. It is basically what you applied to win. Now, we have seen what transpired in the off-cycle elections, nothing to write home about. And INEC has not been questioned. Election results are being called right now in Bayelsa. Duri has won, but there are some polling units where elections did not take place. And you are saying you have already actually declared somebody a winner. What do you think the opposition should do now, considering how things have become? If the opposition does not congratulate the president, then what next?
Well, the thing is, Nigerians should realize that what is at stake is their future, their life, their being. So we must take our destinies in our own hands. In other parts of the world where things are going wrong, the people decide to effect change. This was what led to the Arab Springs. This was what led to change in every other society. Now, we continue to say, we will be killed, because we are already dead. This is already the land of the living dead. So the people have to decide by themselves that enough is enough. Because democracy is all about voting in your own person, the person you desire, the majority votes being counted. But if you come to an election and there's nothing like majority vote, just a clear imposition, it's like the results being read in Imo State. It was clearly there was high voter apathy. The turnout was very, very abysmal. But you will be shocked to realize that what INEC released for Imo State was that Hope Uzodinma scored more votes than all the presidential candidates during the elections in Imo State. Hope Uzodinma was allocated over 540,000 votes for his governorship when people did not even come out to vote. While during the presidential election, when people were on the line till 9 o'clock in the night, all the candidates scored 490,000 votes. So you see that there is clear robbery going on. And then it's left to people that they have to put an end to this process. We have seen it play out in several countries of the world. And Nigerians must rise up and say enough is enough. It has gotten to the stage where, like in Imo State now, they don't just rely on the INEC officials. They had to bring in an armada of security personnel, over 25,000 police, to scare people and to cordon them into agreeing with whatever happened. But we have to, one at a time, we have to say enough is enough. We saw the shootings in Kogi State. We saw the shootings in Bayelsa. For how long will we continue to go this route? Because if you shoot and you steal to get into government house, you are simply an armed robber who has taken over power. Because robbery, let me define what robbery is. Robbery is when you steal what does not belong to you. So if there's a vote that does not belong to you and you steal it with arms, the person is technically an armed robber. So if that person who is an armed robber becomes your governor, the state is messed up. So Nigerians have to decide and realize the consequences. It is for us to put a stop to this and not begin to look for ways to cross the Sahara Desert by leg, to go to Europe or to swim across ocean. We have to stay here and salvage Nigeria because we have no other country than Nigeria. And if this rot continues, I wonder where we'll be in the next couple of months.
Barrister Eze, 150 billion naira and 14 billion naira respectively to secure victories in the 2023 elections. And these monies were used for elections. Possibly they would want to recuperate this monies back with the internal revenue we're trying to generate to the impoverishment of the people. The president said he was going to set up a committee to look at making sure that food is accessible, cheap, and available to the people. We haven't heard anything about that. And we've seen the supplementary budget already on ground and how the division, how they allocated the monies to these different sectors. And beyond that, they're saying there is no money in the country. We're supposed to also conduct a population census. So, Barrister Eze Eluche, who is being deceived? Are Nigerians willingly allowing themselves to be deceived? Or is it that there is nothing anyone can do? When you try to protest, there is already a court order saying you should not protest. If you try to down tools, they will say you're going against a court order in downing tools. And nobody even wants to down tools because they do not have food to eat at home to say they want to observe a strike. A lot of young persons have migrated to other countries, verifiable, viable young individuals that would intellectually help to boost our economy. So what should we do? Where do we go from here?
Well, what we should do is that we have to just have the realization that we have no other country than Nigeria. That those who have migrated out abroad, ask them how they are faring over there. They are being treated as second-class citizens. So it is better we stay back here and tackle and address these issues by ourselves. You have just mentioned the amounts of the humongous sums that were spent on elections. And these sums must be retrieved or recouped by these politicians. Yes. That was why, for instance, after expending all the billions he spent for elections, the very first thing Mr. Tinubu did when he became president was to increase the price of fuel. Despite how it will affect every other person.
Barrister Eze, in defense to him, he said that it was not him that removed fuel subsidy, it was his predecessor. It was not even in the next budget when he came on board. That's what he said. Well,
he can say whatever he says, that is his politician. But the fact remains that on his inauguration, at the place of inauguration was where he announced that the fuel prices will be high. Simple. The lies he told is immaterial as far as we are concerned, because he could have he could have cancelled it even if it wasn't him who started it. But they have to recoup these funds that was expended, just like we have also in Imo State. You have a governor who did virtually nothing for the first 4 years, and he was only coming to promise, I will build road, I will build schools, when he was contesting for a second tenure. And he spent so much money. There are videos of where one of his commissioners, the Attorney General, COC Akolisa, was handing over cash to soldiers. It's online in the video. So how they will recoup these funds. And recouping these funds means that the people will suffer more. So people have to decide. We have to put a stop to all this nonsense. And one day we'll have to just rise up and say, look, enough is enough. If the court will not be part of that process of putting a stop to nonsense, then people have to think of alternate means. But we're not reinventing the wheel. Other countries have done this. They have changed evil systems, and we have to learn from how others did it to also do it.
All right. Thank you so much, Barrister Eze Eluche, for your time here on the World News at 6 and helping to give us your perspective on the issues discussed here.
Thank you very much.
All right. And now to wrap up the world news at 6 here again are the top stories. Despite court order, TUC NLC insists on nationwide strike. INEC officially declares winner Bayelsa governorship election. Tinubu's aide reacts as Diri wins Bayelsa governorship election. Tinubu reacts as Uzodinma Diri Ododo win Gober elections. Reps demand update on missing 3 billion naira from ITF within 48 hours. And Tinubu directs withdrawal of police personnel from VIPs. That's a wrap on the World News at 6 right here in Voice of the People 90.3 FM. My name is Esther Wachuku. Good evening and thank you for staying with us. Do join us on VOP Politics on at VOP TV Live. VOP Politics at VOP TV Live at 7 p.m. today. Thank you.